And here we are again. Welcome back to the High North Dialogue 2021. Last day, last session, but I'm still very much your host, Andreas Raspotnik. It's now time for the High North Hero Award. To present this year's award, as she has also done so over the past few years, I'm very happy to welcome to the stage the former director of the Arctic Economic Council and now the director of the Arctic Frontiers Conference in Tromsø, Arno Fredriksen. But before Arno takes over my spot of being the center of attention, we'll first listen to former High North heroes, especially the last one from 2019, Bob Correll. Time for a video.
I first became interested in the Arctic as a result of a friend of mine who invited me to come to Alaska. And while I was in Alaska, she took me for a tour to Barrow and the far north so that I could see what life was like among the indigenous peoples. The result was that she laid down a challenge to me. And she said that, if you're truly interested in doing good in the world, that the opportunity in the Arctic was something that the world was ignoring. And it was a direct result of that I began to speak about the Arctic and to talk about the phenomenal opportunity which is being presented there today. There are clear downsides to climate change, but there are also opportunities. I am optimistic that the future of the Arctic is one that is very bright. The fact that we are addressing the issues today of being responsible in its development of that region of the world is a unique opportunity, which has not been the model of the past. The fact that people are gathered together and are concerned and devoting their time before the development has occurred gives me great hope that the future of the Arctic is bright.
I found the conference to be extremely interesting. And the young people that were there, I spoke to some of them, and whenever I speak to young people, I always kind of, leave a message. And the message is that, this whole process of development or dealing with climate change or dealing with environmental protection is a common goal. It's always a challenge to figure out how you balance the interests of the people living in the north in the small communities, and not just in terms of maintaining their cultural way of life, but also to make sure that the young people are getting educated. It's a learning process, it's an educational process, and to take that education and use it in whatever field that you find that you want to go into when you complete your education, I think is really critical. And we always say we want to take responsibility. Well, this is a common responsibility we have, and I think organizations like the High North Conference is a place where we can do that.
I have such a great memory of last year receiving the High North Hero Prize. It was one of the high points in my life, really. I was so impressed by the young students demonstrating real competence. I think we can look forward to a new generation with a balanced view, environmentally conscious, that's sure, but also understanding the importance of economic opportunities being used in a sustainable way in the Arctic. And there we are actually, in many ways, only in the beginning.
So it's an honor for me to introduce to you delegates of the High North Dialogue, Bob Correll, who back in 2019 were awarded as the High North Hero for his research in climate change and how they affect the society. So Bob, 2 years later, what is your main concern for the people living in the high north and the Arctic?
Well, for me, it really revolves around the next generation of our children, your children, mine, and our grandchildren and those that are beyond, because they will live with the decisions that we have and have not made during this time. So they are going to be confronted with change. We will go faster or slower depending on how we transform our energy, but we're all going to have to adapt. It is real. It is unavoidable but the temperatures are up, and as a consequence, the planet is adjusting. You know, the planet has this incredible ability to adjust very small temperature change. You know, for 10,000 years up till the advent of the energy world in, say, 1750, the variability of the climate globally was less than about 7/10 of a degree centigrade. And that allowed us as humans to evolve, to invent agriculture and eventually industry and all the other things, huge climatic stability. And that's what the young people are not going to have in the decades to come. We won't have that stability. And part of it is that we know some of the dimensionality, but there'll be surprises. Mother Nature does a nice thing for us. She lays down everything about how she behaves, and our challenge is figure it all out. It's like this great, huge, wonderful puzzle. So the concern for the young people is they're going to face these things. But on the other hand, it gives them the opportunity to be innovative, to be imaginative, to be creative. And frankly, that's why I'm not only honored to have been given this High North Hero Award, because it evolved from many, many years of my living in, working in the Arctic. This is the first year I have not been in the Arctic in 50 years. And as a consequence, some things are happening. And here you're going to have your next meeting. It's focused on perspectives for the young, the focus on the young. I found what I learned when I was there 2 years ago, some really spectacular things. You all have reached out way beyond the European Arctic, which tends to have captured everybody's interest in the EU. They even talk about the European Arctic. You don't confine yourself to that, and you don't use the word Arctic. You use High North. And High North is where the people are. You know, there aren't many people living in the Central Arctic Ocean Basin, you know. It's not there. In fact, hardly very little activity there at any time. So High North was a wonderful name for you to have captured, and then to share that phrase with me in my years to come. So I do see the young people having the adaptation realities, but I think the opportunity space is rich across the dimensionality of your High North Center. It is in business and governance, and that's where it's going to occur. And when those things occur, then change will occur. And we're already seeing the banking industry thinking, well, I think we probably ought to get in this game. Things of that nature will change it. This will change the whole business world, and it'll change the whole governance world. That's the answer to the young people. The ball is in their court. Many of us have already hit it. It's in the air, and they have to catch it.
So if we step back a little bit and look at the daily life in the future, what does your research tell us about how we people living in the high north have to change our daily life and adapt to a new future?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because it really does come down to what happens to me as a person, you as a person, and all the others who live in the Arctic. And as you know, I work closely with indigenous people in the Arctic, across from Inuits to Samis and Aleuts and the like. And for them, this is real. It's happening, because the temperatures are increasing at, you know, roughly 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the world is, because in a way the Arctic is sort of the bellwether, the canary in the mine that tells us if we look 20, 30 years ahead, what's happening in the Arctic today will be happening at much lower latitudes. And Sea level is one, but in the Arctic, that's not quite the one. But if you're a reindeer herder, the whole vegetation processes are changing. Rain on snow is changing their lives. They're losing herds. And if I had any counsel to the young people, you can't wait until it comes. You have to be smart and quick-minded, which we have not been with this COVID thing. You know, we've got this, we didn't plan for it, and so we've stumbled our way through a whole year beautifully, imaginatively, and all the rest. But we could have been better prepared, and that's what the young people should demand of you and me, the ways to get there and to actually do things. You know, I would like to diverge just a second, because what I'm so overwhelmed by what you have done at the center is that you've not kept it the European Arctic. You have reached out to Russia and China and the likes, and they're an integral part of this, and reaching over to Canada as well. So in some ways, while you're nested in the North Atlantic region, you are reaching out in both directions very creatively, and you use the business governance framework to do that. You know, I had the honor recently to interview Gorbachev about his speech back in October 1st of 1987. You know, and it's amazing. He said to me in response to this interview, I believe that the goal of transforming the world northward to the Arctic into a zone of peace, and we are set to do that as we set the stage in 30 years ago. And I'm convinced that cooperation and partnership. So, you know, here's a man who opened some doorways. We created the Arctic Council out of his words. We created the International Arctic Science Committee out of his words. And so, you know, he helped us practice what he was preaching, that we got there. And you guys are doing the same thing.
Bob, you brought in a broader perspective on the High North and the Arctic, and you also mentioned the Arctic Council, which is one of the institutions that still are working together across the borders. For the young people, and even for people grown up like you and me, there is a growing concern about the military activity in this area. You mentioned this used to be a peaceful area, and then you have the growing activity. And to put it into your research, actually, is there a lack of research on the climate effect of the military expanding in the world and also in the Arctic?
Yes, absolutely, unquestionably. Over the last several years, I personally have led several trips of military people to the Arctic. One of the trips was the U.S. Coast Guard. And all the top officers of the Coast Guard, because the commander at that time said, we have no clue of the effect of that on our operations. And so we spent 10 days wandering around the Arctic, having the realities that some things don't work out the way you want them to, and having to face that. And out of that came a new plan that the U.S. Coast Guard is now putting in place. We did the same thing with the Air Force. We've done it with the Army. And they all wake up to the fact that they have operational responsibilities. Not all of it is the classical military security issue. We have people who are going on ships up there, and they might get in trouble, and they're going to have to go and help them. And so just as recently as 2 months ago, the Air Force released its Arctic plan about how we're going to do things. And when we were up there, one of them said to me, by the way, we had as high-ranking generals as we could possibly imagine. And he said to me, you've just told us about the weather. Operations in the Air Force is all about weather. And I think we cannot bring our best intellect to the table. Not so much that we want to plan for some military operation in the classic sense, but to be prepared, to be smart. And maybe to create other opportunities to think about how that might work. And then you work really closely with Russia. And Russia sees this is an incredible future for Russia, an operation they've never dreamed they would have, which was a maritime nation. And now they're feeling like one, and They see economic development. They see, I mean, you've been to the Arctic, you know, in the last decade, you and I would go to a place, say 30 years ago, it was a gulag. It looked like hell. And now some of them look like any developed city in the north. But it's happening. And I think presidents and prime ministers are going to be faced with talking these things out in the years to come. But you're right to raise the question. I don't have good answers. I can only say I see for the first time real serious planning. And you guys, you know, when Norway decided to support and develop your center, there was an imaginative approach. I can tell you, I've been in this business forever. Somebody putting down the words, a center focused on business and governance, that's remarkable. That's why I'm so honored to be a part of your circle.
And you really are, Bob. And it was an honor to give you the Heinrich Hero Prize 2 years ago. It's an honor to have you back this year's Heinrich Dialogue, which is like our talk digital mostly. That's the way it is. But in front of our speech now, you will see a lot of future decision maker in both academic life and in political life. So if you, as last, would give them an appeal for the future, you are very welcome to give it now.
Well, the appeal is to keep all these dimensionalities in place. Get street smart about planning and accepting the fact that we're going to adapt to a very changing world. And that means we have to learn as we go. You know, we get smart by reflecting on what we have or have not done. And in a changing world, learning by doing has got to become kind of the watchword in a very rapidly adapting and changing world. But I think humans have a huge inherent capacity to do that. And our job in your center, in my world, and all the world we work in is to stimulate that as much as we possibly can. And as you are raising in this year's title, Business in the Arctic, Prospects for the Young, perfect. Because it's optimistic. And that's what it always should be. I was accused recently by a former prime minister who will remain nameless that she said to me, she said, she went to, it's a president of a nation, okay, let's be blunt, in Europe. And she said, and I've been now with you for about 4 or 5 years and interacting. She said, you are a prisoner of hope, Bob. And be a prisoner of hope. Don't worry about, I'm guardedly optimistic and all that. But hope is our future as humans. So I would hope that those who gather recognize that they are prisoners of a change, but it's going to be all nested in hope.
Thank you so much, Bob Correll. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Bob Correll.
My pleasure to be here, sir.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the High North Hero Selection Committee, it is my distinguished pleasure and honor to announce the winner of the 5th High North Hero Award. The High North Hero is an award created by the High North Center for Business and Governance to honor a person, organization, or company who has contributed to highlighting or developing the High North region. The winner has been selected by an international committee of Arctic experts based on nominations by the general public. In addition to recognition of the selected winner's efforts, the winner will receive a prize of 50,000 Norwegian kroners and a High North Hero diploma. The committee received a number of excellent recommendations. When assessing the candidates, we looked for people or organizations that have had a positive impact in the Arctic. Our aim was to award people or organizations that have worked to promote business opportunities, growth, jobs, and innovations. The 5th High North Hero is heavily engaged in business and societal development in the High North. The winner is both visionary and practical. Visionary in seeing possibilities before others and in advocating for this region. Visionary in his efforts to organize the first truly international commercial navigation through the Northern Sea Route. Visionary in his contributions to a significant improvement in the practical management of the route, well ahead of the serious start of transits. The winner practices as he preaches. The impact of his work in practice is manifested, for example, in the implementation of concrete projects which benefit the region at large. The winner's engagement in mining industry in the High North is a practical proof of serious engagement, endurance, and willingness to invest in the High North. The winner has a wide and inclusive engagement for the development of the region. The engagement is both local and global. Locally, the winner is known for creating new opportunities through business, growth, and new initiatives. Globally, the winner has been instrumental in establishment of regulations and guidelines for responsible investments in the Arctic. Our High North hero is an inspiration for business people, academics, analysts, and decision makers. His works and initiatives have led to concrete results and development of broad competence on specific fields. One such is the initiative to establish the Center for High North Logistics. This year's High North hero receives the prize for his contributions to business and societal development, for his work to promote sustainable, responsible development, and for his innovative engagement in the High North. The winner of the 5th High North Hero Award is Felix Judy. It is my distinguished pleasure and honor to welcome Felix on the stage. Congratulations, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anu, and thank you to the selection committee. So, I got almost overwhelmed by these kind words. So, first of all, I would like to again say thank you to Anu and the committee for selecting me as the High North Hero 2020. Whether I deserve it, I don't know. But if long-term involvement matters, then I think starting in Kirkenes with cross-border trade in 1992 probably counts. The High North has been and is a long-term passion, which I have to thank my colleagues in the Judy Group, and not least my family, for having allowed me the time and freedom to pursue. Without their dedication and support, and above all, patience, I could never have spent so much time on Arctic issues and still have a company and a family. I can tell you the High North has not always contributed to our bottom line or a quiet family life. So thank you very much for that. I will take this opportunity to say something about a topic which is very close to my heart. The Northern Sea Route, the NSR. Based on the Ever Given accident, there has been increased interest in the NSR as an alternative to the Suez Canal. The main counter-arguments were quickly repeated, though, summed up in a recent article in the Independent Barents Observer, picked up by me via Arctic Today, which I, by the way, highly recommend as an excellent way of staying on top of Arctic developments with articles from High North News and others. The issues pointed out were high cost of transportation, environmental damage, disappointing statistics as to the route's demand. Let me outline a future scenario which responds to these objections. In 2031, 10 years from now, the perception of the NSR as an environmental threat has been turned into one of environmental benefit. According to reports from the Murmansk-based information office of the Center for High North Logistics here at Nord University, which I had the honor to chair until some years earlier than 2031, container vessels of the types developed by Aker Arctic and others more than 10 years before are trading year-round. The fuel is mainly LNG with onboard carbon capture technology, collecting all emissions, including black carbon. LNG is bunkered at the eastern and western entrances of the NSR, as well as along the Siberian coast. The bunker vessels or bunker facilities are obliged by law to receive and dispose of the CO2 in environmentally approved and verifiable ways. The LNG as fuel means there is no risk of oil pollution in connection with accidents. This is the opposite of what was argued 10 years earlier by some of those who operated very large ships suitable only for the Suez Canal and a limited number of ports. Greenwashing, I think it was called, or maybe it was just lack of knowledge about the Arctic. A general challenge, I would say. The NSR is by 2031 considered the most environmentally sound transportation route between east and west, combining a shorter route with zero emissions. An important catalyst for this was this Russian federal program introduced in 2023, which financially incentivized low emissions NSR transits, while at the same time penalizing higher emission solutions. Over the 10 years up to 2031, the ongoing global warming prolonged the ice-free season, resulting in higher average transit speeds. This, combined with slow steaming on other trade routes due to stricter IMO emissions limits, gave the NSR transit an additional competitive advantage. The nuclear icebreakers operate as large mobile search and rescue platforms when they are not doing icebreaking duties. This, combined with the Trans-Arctic SAR cooperation with Norway and the US, has made the NSR one of the best protected stretches of sea on Earth. With more regular international users, the NSR became accepted as an alternative international trade route and not only a Russian affair. This development also benefited the local populations, which gained access to competitive transport solutions for their produce. Over time, this provided the necessary infrastructure to sustain local indigenous cultures and livelihood, with the result that the local Arctic populations started to grow in the regions around the large resource developments. Okay, I accept. This was a 2031 future scenario. So what are the preconditions necessary for this to happen? In this context, it is a great advantage that there are, as yet, very few purpose-built vessels for the NSR transit trades. This is a huge advantage, as the lack of a legacy fleet will make taking the right decisions easier. The period until that advantage is lost is a unique window or opportunity to form the future of the NSR. Russia and its Arctic neighbors will have to take some bold decisions together with the involved business and shipping communities to establish the right cooperative framework for such a future. This must be possible despite the present colder geopolitical winds, which should not be allowed to derail the Arctic cooperative spirit. This spirit, dating from the time of Arctic explorations, survived the Cold War until today's remarkable cooperation in the Arctic Council, which this year celebrates its 25th anniversary. Now that the Arctic heats up, the Arctic nations should let this translate into something positive for the world, despite disagreements on other fronts. Arctic exceptionalism must be given a chance to succeed. Again. To round off, as an impressed participant at the High North Dialogue Conference yesterday, I was watching the High North Young Entrepreneurs Award and was very impressed by the nominees. Of course, everyone cannot win. So, I would like to create one more winner by giving half of my prize to the Russian cultural and artistic initiative Music Alchemy in Arkhangelsk. We have heard from many during this conference how important culture is for the quality of Arctic lives and the well-being of its people, and as everywhere else, even more so during the corona times. For that reason, I hope Music Alchemy can make good use of this contribution to spread some positive vibrations in Arkhangelsk and maybe across the borders in the Arctic. The second half of the prize I would like to give to an initiative related to how to combat plastics in the Arctic Ocean, which is a serious problem. Here, there are several candidates which we in the Chudi group will evaluate and announce very soon. So, with these words, again, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Felix Chudi, the High North Hero of 2021. Yes, Felix, you definitely deserve it. I wish I could be with you in person to celebrate. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Lawrence Smith. I am an Arctic scientist. I've been visiting and studying the Arctic for almost 30 years. And the pace of the physical climate changes I've observed is exceeded only by the pace of global interest in this very special and iconic region. With all this attention comes great public misunderstanding, and that's why conferences like this one are so important. Over the course of the past 2.5 days, this conference has offered us clear, fact-based discussions of the current state and future trajectory of the Arctic region, and a platform to debate what kind of a future we want. As I've listened to the panels and speakers, 3 central themes have come clear to me. The first is we have learned about recent developments, challenges, and opportunities within Norway's High North. This is somewhat more deeper dive than in previous years. We've heard about the important global role of the Arctic as a place of international cooperation. And we have emphasized and learned about the importance of youth to the future of this iconic and rapidly changing region. So let's consider just a few of the highlights along the lines of these 3 themes. Within Norway, right from the opening panel, we heard enthusiasm from the highest levels of the Norwegian government about the future prospects of Norway's High North. Norway's leaders highlighted the need for increasing support of education and universities. Prime Minister Solberg citing a lack of skilled labor in the region as a major challenge facing Norway. Labor leader Jonas Gahr Støre wants the universities, Tromsø and Bodø, become engines of knowledge for the region and for them to become more decentralized from Oslo. We learned that steps are being made, concrete steps, with Northern Norway planned to receive 28% of planned infrastructure investments over the next 6 years, despite having only 9% of the country's population. That was new to me. In our panels, we learned that today, the fishing industry has changed and is becoming increasingly attractive to young people as a profession again. We learned that battery cell production is ramping up in Northern Norway, with Freyr hiring some 1,500 people by the year 2025. We learned that space technology is growing, particularly so-called new space, which focuses on small sats. It's a sector that's growing 10% a year with opportunities in Northern Norway. And of course, we learned some very exciting energy transition projects, in particular hydrogen ammonia projects, which would convert wind power to green transport in the form of hydrogen. Now, hydrogen production has not yet begun in Norway, but that may well change soon. The vision here is creating hubs of hydrogen producing areas along the Norwegian northern coast. It could even potentially become an alternate energy source for Svalbard, which is currently using an old coal plant near the end of its lifetime. And this is not unique to Russia or to Norway. Russia also has a vision for hydrogen hubs along its northern coast. So this is very exciting. And frankly, this I found this to be a very fresh, new, and different element of this year's conference compared to previous years. There are other ideas, exciting ideas talked about as well: data centers, sustainable tourism, and we also learned more about how Northern Norway is an attractive place to live. There will be jobs in the High North for many decades, and the key is making it an attractive place to stem the outflow of young people. This was brought up by many speakers and panelists. It's a beautiful place. We saw a wonderful video by student Philip Shilha from exchange student from Ukraine. And of course, we heard all about the Glimt national football team, who are the champions for the first time in over 100 years. Very exciting. But there are also many challenges. We heard firsthand about the competition between fishing boats and wind farms. Moderator Petter Norre put out, raised some bright skeptical questions in the Q&A of the hydrogen panel, asking the panelists what would it really take to make this hydrogen pipe dream actually happen. And the responses are challenging. In order for it to work, this sector will require sustained government support, collaboration throughout the entire value chain, and demonstration at scale. From Aili Cascatello, the president of the Sami Parliament, we heard some sober responses to all of this enthusiasm. In the Sami experience, she says, all Arctic strategies are a double-edged sword. She can recall no single example in which indigenous languages and cultures have flourished due to industrial development. She observed that the save the world rhetoric that many Southerners bring with good intentions to the Arctic can in fact backlash on local people, for example, wind farms. She worries that even the COVID-19 pandemic may be used as a pretext for more development and industrialization in the region. And finally, from our young panelists, recurring theme I heard is that there's just not enough emphasis on the severity and negative impacts of climate change. Philippe Lesson, quoting Spider-Man, pushed back firmly on all of the development enthusiasm, bringing the dialogue back to the negative global impacts of climate change. Alexandra Selchuk noted that her generation is the first one to experience Arctic climate change and the last to be able to do something about it. And she said that while her younger generation doesn't blame us older ones, they also expect the older generations to facilitate solutions in the way. The second theme was global cooperation. Many panels and speakers throughout the conference, including the ambassadors panel here at the end, returned to this. Clearly, the world is facing challenges. The world has become more fractured, more polarized. The potential for growing militarization in the Arctic is real. The Arctic is experiencing amplified negative impacts of climate change, and there are real access issues that are uneven across the Arctic region, with uneven access to bandwidth, uneven access to universities and learning centers. There's a big difference between the Nordic countries and northern Canada and Russia. Northern Russia, young people are leaving in many areas of the Arctic. All of these challenges are real. But there is a need and role for Arctic cooperation, which helps globally to reduce military tensions, to motivate adherence to Paris, to help motivate the global energy transition, to improve livelihoods, to improve creation and exchange of knowledge and science. Or the universities, including Nord University, have an important role to play in that. To quote Anu Fredriksson, multilateralism has not completely eroded yet. And in the Arctic, cooperation is easier than elsewhere because the Arctic countries often have much more in common with their same neighbors than they do further south. Arctic countries are still getting along in this area despite rising geopolitical tensions. Even Russia and the U.S., which international relations sadly are at an all-time low right now, have always cooperated in the Arctic. And so optimism really was the prevailing theme throughout this conference. And as Anu says, that is exceptional. Arctic exceptionalism is a precious thing, and it's a model for the world. The third theme I took from this conference is there are many conferences about the Arctic now. They're proliferating. But what has always made this one different is emphasis on people. In fact, the origins of this conference are all about bringing international students to Bodø study. The conference has grown over the years. It now features many prominent leaders of governments and businesses, but the High North Dialogue's emphasis on the young has always remained. Indeed, it's a theme of this year's conference. What a pleasure it was for me to hear the perspectives of Nicole Natalie Furnace and Oyvind Johan Olsen, two members of the High North White Paper Youth panel, alongside the Norwegian PM and Labour leader Jonas Gahr Støre in the first open panel. I personally found this change in the panel composition to be refreshing and recalibrating. And I respectfully suggested the organize that continue in the future. I think that young voices should be heard loud and clear in this forum. Most of the participants in this year are less than 40 years old. And over the last 2.5 days, our focus has always been on the future, the benefit not only of business, but of societal development in time itself. So I really enjoyed hearing the student-driven future scenarios. Students and young people were involved in making the Business Index North. And of course, the young entrepreneurs, the 3 finalists, Biotech Host, Norskin, Alchemy. It was just wonderful to see those efforts. So congratulations to the young winners of Best High North Scenario, the finalists for the High North Young Entrepreneurs Contest, alongside our more established winner, Felix Schutte of the High North Europe Award. Congratulations to all. I also thank the organizers and the panelists, moderators, the participants, and the staff for this wonderful experience. Through it, we have all learned many new things today about Norway, about global cooperation, and about perspectives of the young on the Arctic. I look forward to hearing more in the High North Dialogue 2022 on April 6th and 7th next year.
Tusen takk, Lawrence, for summarizing this year's High North Dialogue, the first digital one. To conclude the High North Dialogue live here from Stornman Library, downtown Bodø, I'm very happy that I can welcome the director of the High North Center for Business and Governance back to the stage. Frode, the floor is all yours. I have no more words. It's up to you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. And if it has been possible, I think we should have made a digital applause for Andreas, because he has been there during all day. So let's do that. Wonderful hosted. And thank you to all you participants. Now we are around 1,000 who has been into the conference. And I say thank you to all you panelists and all, of course, moderators. I know how much work it is to prepare that, and it has been a wonderful discussion. You have made us explore new ideas and also exploit what we have already done. So thank you, and thank you to those people behind the cameras. Yeah, you from All Entertainment. It's a great job that you have been doing. And of course, thank you to all the people at the High North Center for Business and Governance. All have been working with this nearly for a year, not to say 2 years, because we could not organize the conference last year. But there is a key group that some of you know. It is Anders, it is Hogne, it is Andrei, and it is Elena. I think they also need an applause. And then, just to be honest, we have started working on the program for next year. And as Lawrence said, put in your calendar April 6 and 7, 2022. Till then, I say together with the team, goodbye, see you then.